That night, a security guard was humiliated in front of everyone, but none of them knew. 1 minute later, their lives would change forever. In a major city in the United States, among towering skyscrapers, streets that never truly sleep, and city lights glowing through the night, lived a young man named Ethan Walker. 28 years old. On paper, Ethan was the youngest billionaire in Silicon Valley, the owner of a data security technology company valued at tens of billions of dollars. His name often appeared in business magazines, yet his face was rarely known to the public. He disliked attention, not out of arrogance, but out of exhaustion. Tired of fake smiles, tired of women who fell in love with his bank account, not with him. One night, after a formal dinner with investors at a luxury hotel in San Francisco, Ethan stood alone in front of the mirror in his penthouse suite. His expensive suit hung neatly and $1 million watch lay on the table. If all of this disappeared, he murmured softly, "Would anyone still love me?" The question settled deep in his heart, and that was where everything began. A week later, Ethan made a decision his personal assistant considered insane. He applied for a contract security guard position at an elite office building in downtown without using the Walker name. He went by Evan. A simple gray uniform now covered his body. Cheap black shoes replaced Italian leather. His hair was cut short and plain. No sports cars, only city buses and subway trains. His first day standing in the lobby felt silent. People passed by without a glance. Executives walked in quickly, eyes fixed on their phones. Some deliberately avoided looking at him, as if a security guard were nothing more than part of the wall. "Don't stand too close," said a man in an expensive suit coldly. "Careful. Don't touch that door. You're just a guard," another added with disdain. Ethan only nodded. His chest felt tight, but he held it in. He wanted to know how the world treated someone without status. Day after day passed. In the small break room, he often overheard whispers. Why would a building like this hire such a cheap guard? Look at his shoes. His salary must be nothing. Someone like him could never have big dreams. The words cut deep, not because of physical pain, but because they were real. For the first time in his life, Ethan truly felt invisible. One morning, heavy rain poured outside. A young woman hurried into the lobby. Her blazer was wet, her brown hair tied simply. Her face looked tired, but her eyes were honest. Ethan quickly opened the door for her. "Thank you," she said instinctively, then paused for a moment. Most people never said those words. Her name was Claire Bennett, 26 years old, an interior design staff member working on one of the upper floors. Not an executive, not an heiress, just an ordinary woman working hard to build her life. From that day on, Claire always greeted him. "Good morning, Evan. Hope you have a good day." Simple words, but to Ethan they felt warm. Not everyone was pleased to see it. One afternoon in the building cafeteria, Ethan stood in line for lunch. A building supervisor glanced at him with contempt. "Security guards should eat in the back, not here," he said loudly. "This place isn't for people like you." All eyes turned toward Ethan. He lowered his head. His fists clenched. That was when Claire stood up from her table. "Excuse me," she said firmly. "He's a human being too. He works here just like the rest of us." The room fell silent. Ethan looked at her in shock. No one had ever defended him like that, without knowing who he truly was. For the first time, he felt something different. Not admiration, not wealth, but the feeling of being valued as a human being. That night, Ethan sat alone in his small rented apartment. Not a penthouse, just a narrow space under dim lighting. He took off his security shoes and stared at his own hands. "If she knew who I really am," he whispered, "would she look at me the same way?" Outside, the city lights shimmered. Inside his heart, a conflict slowly grew. Could true love survive without a mask? That morning, the San Francisco sky was gray. A thin layer of fog wrapped around the tall buildings, as if the city itself were hiding a secret. Ethan, or Evan, the name he now used, stood at his usual post in the lobby. But that day felt different. Since the cafeteria incident, the way people looked at him had changed. Not kinder, sharper. Some felt offended that a security guard had dared to be defended in public. A tall man in an expensive suit entered the lobby. His wristwatch gleamed conspicuously. It was Mark Reynolds, a real estate investor who frequently came and went from the building. Mark stopped right in front of Ethan. "You the new guard?" he asked, half mocking. "This job suits people who don't really have choices in life." Ethan held his breath. "I'm just doing my job, sir." Mark smirked. If you have dreams, don't aim too high. Falling hurts. The words sounded light, but they struck hard. Moments later, Claire stepped out of the elevator. She caught the tail end of the conversation. Her expression hardened. "Mr. Reynolds," she said coldly, "not everyone here lives off inheritance or investments." Mark turned, surprised, then chuckled. "You're too kind, Claire. But be careful. People like him usually just pass through your life." Claire didn't reply. She simply glanced at Ethan, a look that made his chest feel both warm and aching. Later that afternoon, Claire approached the security desk with 2 cups of coffee. "I ordered too much," she said, handing one to him. "If you want it." Ethan accepted it nervously. "Thank you." They sat for a while. No heavy topics. Just talk about the rain, work, and how expensive life in the city was. "I'm tired," Claire said softly. "Sometimes it feels like everyone is racing to become something and forgetting how to be human." Ethan fell silent. Her words felt as if they were meant for him. "You seem different," Claire continued. "Calm, as if you've had everything once and chose to let it go." Ethan gave a faint smile. "Maybe I'm just learning how to live." Claire looked at him for a long moment, then smiled back. Not a smile of admiration, but a sincere one. That closeness did not go unnoticed. Some of Claire's co-workers began to whisper, "Why is she close to a security guard?" "She's smart, but her choices are strange." One evening, Claire's supervisor called her in. "You need to protect your image," he said seriously. "Connections matter. Don't throw away your future because of feelings." Claire left the office with a heavy chest. On the other side, Ethan received a warning. "You're talking too much with employees," the head of security said. "Don't forget your position." That night, they met outside the building after work. "Are we doing something wrong?" Claire asked quietly. "We're just talking, but it feels like a crime." Ethan wanted to tell the truth, to say that the world that looked down on him actually belonged to him. That one phone call could change everything, but he held back. "We're not the problem," he said at last. "The problem is how the world judges people by their uniforms." As Claire walked away, Mark stood not far behind. "You know," he said, stepping closer to Ethan, "people like you are just stepping stones." "She deserves better." Ethan stared at the ground. "Thank you for the advice." Mark laughed. "Just being realistic." That night, Ethan walked home with heavy steps. In his small apartment, he opened the laptop he had been hiding in the closet. His company's logo appeared clearly on the screen. He closed it again. "I want to be loved for who I am," he said to himself, "not for what I have." Tears fell before he realized it. Elsewhere, Claire stood by the window of her apartment, looking out at the glowing city. "Why does the world always make everything so complicated?" she whispered. 2 hearts that had found each other were now being tested by status, judgment, and painful choices. And without realizing it, a great truth was slowly approaching. A truth that could destroy everything, or change their lives forever. The rain poured heavily that night, soaking the city of San Francisco like tears that were never wiped away. City lights reflected off the wet asphalt, creating trembling shadows, just like Ethan's heart. That day was the hardest since he first put on the gray security uniform. A grand event was being held in the building where Ethan worked. A gathering of investors and high-level executives. The lobby was filled with important guests. Soft music played. Crystal glasses clinked. Ethan stood at his post, upright and calm. Suddenly, a loud voice broke the atmosphere. "Hey, guard! Don't you see I'm trying to get through?" It was Mark Reynolds. His voice was deliberately raised so everyone could hear. "Do you think standing there makes you look important?" He continued with a laugh. "You're just a door guard. That's all your life will ever be." A few people chuckled softly. Others simply watched. Claire, who had just stepped out of the elevator, froze in place. "That's enough, Mark," she said firmly. "If you want respect, learn how to give it." Mark turned with a sneer. "You're defending him again? Do you even know who he is?" Claire stepped beside Ethan. "He's a human being. That's enough." The room fell silent. Ethan looked at Claire. For the first time, he realized that hiding the truth was only hurting the person he wanted to protect. He stepped forward. "Claire," he said softly but clearly, "I'm sorry for not being honest." All eyes turned to him. "I didn't disguise myself to test anyone, but to find someone who could love me without a mask." Mark laughed loudly. "Nice story, guard." Ethan took a deep breath. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out his phone, and pressed a single button. In less than a minute, everything changed. The main doors opened. Several men and women in tailored suits entered with tense expressions. One of them hurried toward Ethan. "Mr. Walker," he said respectfully, "we've been looking for you." The room erupted in shock. Whispers spread quickly. "Walker?" The tech billionaire. Mark turned pale. The glass in his hand nearly slipped. Claire stared at Ethan. The world seemed to stop. "You." Her voice trembled. "Ethan Walker?" Ethan removed his security cap. "I'm still the same person you knew," he said quietly. "The one who opened the door for you in the rain. The one who shared coffee with you. The one who was mocked and defended by you." Tears streamed down Claire's cheeks. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I was afraid," Ethan answered honestly. "Afraid you'd see me differently." Mark stepped back, his face filled with embarrassment and anger. No one was laughing anymore. Claire looked around the room, then back at Ethan. "I didn't fall in love with your bank account," she said firmly. "I fell in love with the man who stayed kind even when he was looked down on." She took Ethan's hand in front of everyone. The room fell silent once more. But this time, it was a silence full of meaning. A few months later, an article appeared in a business magazine. "Young billionaire Ethan Walker, wealth can be built, but dignity cannot be bought." Yet the most valuable thing to Ethan was not the praise. In a city park, he sat on a wooden bench beside Claire. No expensive suits, no security uniform, just two ordinary people. "Do you regret it?" Ethan asked. "No," Claire replied with a smile. "Because I chose your heart, not your world." Ethan held her hand tightly. In a city that often judges people by appearances, they proved one thing. True love never asks who you are in the eyes of the world. It only cares about who you are when the world looks down on you.